east, this would be Arena Drive here. It's just to the east of that. It would be this parcel right here. It has split zoning, so the front portion is red, which is commercial, and the back portion is in this green, which is conservation agriculture. This site has been in front of the Planning Commission before. It was a special use permit to construct an adult care facility. The project is under construction and nearing occupancy. This is a Google Maps of that, and you can see the main drive that comes back into the site. This is the facility that's under construction. It's a care facility again. The request that we have here tonight, it really has nothing to do with the facility itself. It has to do with this main drive. The applicant desires to divide this property. He's got a parcel here and another parcel here, and then the main parcel where the facility is, and then a parcel to the back. In order to divide it and comply with the requirements of the zoning district, each parcel has to have a certain land area as well as frontage on a dedicated public road or private road. So what he's going to do is convert this drive that came in and make it a private road. It was built to those standards. It's under construction, but it was originally designed to meet those. Really, the exception is this cul-de-sac turnaround at the end, which, if you look at the Google Maps, isn't really there. And when it was approved as a special use permit, there was not a cul-de-sac. So that would be the one change. He has to dedicate 66-foot wide easement for the private road, and then that would allow him to divide the property and get a couple other parcels there. So that's the request, is to convert that main access drive to a private road. It requires going to the Planning Commission for review, and it also will require going to the Township Board for final approval. If you have any questions, I'll be available to help.
All right. Anything you'd like to add, or?
No, not one.
Did he cover it for you?
I think he did.
All right. We're going to take a look at the staff letter that we have. I am on, well, it's dated June 4th, 2020. I'm on page 3 of the staff letter, or packet page 7, where down towards the bottom it talks about private road standards. Because it isn't a site plan and it's written a little differently, we're just going to talk about the bullet points. There's a couple things we have to touch on here. It's being defined as a private road because he's going to maintain it. It's not being turned over to the county. Now I'm on the next page, and the first bullet point is section 5.2 of the zoning ordinance requires all lots created as having frontage on an approved public or private road, as Troy had said. It looks like we're fairly good in that area with the lot width and lot area requirements, with the exception of parcel 1. And Troy, do you just want to point that out, what we're talking about there?
Yeah, so on this parcel, I'm going to zoom down, this one right here, it's got frontage on M59 that is it's 99.41 feet, but it also has more than enough frontage on this proposed private road.
Okay. So you guys, it says you're just going to be taking a look at that during the land division review?
Yeah, when it comes time to do
Not a problem at the end of the day for them?
No.
Okay. All right. The next bullet point was the standards for the private road. And the next bullet after that, 5.234, the construction plan requirements of the private road. It looks like they provided a cross-section of the actual road itself, and we're all set there. At the top of page 5, section 5.234B point XI, my eyes are bad, requires a proposed method of surface drainage. And basically what you're saying is that's not been submitted, but it's being reviewed?
Yeah, well, they submit, during the special use permit review, they submitted construction plans that showed the drainage of the road at that time. The only real difference is going to be in that cul-de-sac where there will be, if this gets approved, then he'll have construction plans that will really address that. The engineer didn't see any problems with drainage on this
Okay.
road.
Any comments or thoughts? Okay, now I'm at the second bullet point there. The 5.234B XII requires public and private utility locations. That's just something that's going to come up later, you say, is because
Yeah.
the road's under construction?
Well, again, it's under construction, and all of that was part of the special use permit, and then the construction plans that followed that. It's any additional utilities that weren't already part of those construction plans will be shown on those construction plans for primarily the cul-de-sac portion of it.
Okay.
I can zoom up here if that helps.
So that's all okay.
Yeah.
Everybody good with that? Section 5.234C requires a cost estimate. We don't have that. Is that something that you're going to get or need, or it's being
I don't
brought up?
think in
So
this is an unusual case, because most of the time, this request would be for a proposed road. It's unusual to have a road that is been approved and was part of a project that's ongoing that already meets those standards. That construction estimate is generally for the purposes of getting performance bond and/or escrow observation, so you know. Well, in this case, that's not going to, we already have a performance bond for this, and we already have an escrow observation for this, so I don't know that it's as important in this particular case.
okay. Everybody good with that?
Maybe if it's hard to hear, I apologize. I'm working to be better.
Okay. Everyone all right with that?
Yes.
Okay, so the next one, 5.23.5, minimum private road standards, all that's being reviewed.
Yes.
But again, it's already been built. They're just reviewing the standards that it was built to make sure it complies. Is that what you're stating?
Yeah, and again, we're not pointing out anything that doesn't comply. We're just telling you, here's the standards in the ordinance, and this virtually does comply with all of those.
Okay. And then item B under that is, because of the 4 parcels, they do need the private road, as you explained.
Yeah.
Private drive wouldn't work because maximum is 2 parcels off of a private drive. So that all fits within the standard. C, all private roads shall comply with the geometric design, construction, and other standards. Again, it's built, but the engineer is reviewing it.
Yeah, and again, it's more the cul-de-sac. And that one where we had the fire department also look at that one as well. So that's not just the engineer on that one.
Okay. Item D is the drainage. Township engineer will review. You'd already brought that up. He didn't see any issues initially.
With just the road.
Yeah. E would be the connection. Cul-de-sac is 600 feet. Well, the roads longer than 600 feet need to be talked about. We can permit them. This one's about 1,000 feet. Any comments on that? The only question I had that I was going to bring up is, in a lot of cases, you think even when you read the private road ordinance, when we get the road, we try and get it to the side of the parcel to try and get cross-access easement for a neighboring parcel. I don't know that it's required.
I did talk with the applicant about that, and if you want, he can maybe share his concerns. When we talked, he said he's willing to do that. He's got this entire area here that this easement abuts the property line, so a connection could be made at any point. The applicant did say that should be a negotiation with that property owner. There's considerable cost that went into the design, the engineering, and the physical construction of that road, and he would like to be able to have an opportunity to have that negotiation with those.
Yeah, I don't think the intent was ever that they would access their property from that. It would just be, they would have their own drive on 59. All it would do is connect parking lots, And if, let's say, there was an emergency situation on your parcel or theirs, and one of those entrances was blocked, emergency vehicles can get through. Or if you have facilities on the parcel to the east of yours, and let's say you had a medical facility next to yours and they wanted to go to the doctor, they would have to, right now, without having access of parking lots, they would end up having to go out on 59, loop all the way around and come back. So it's more of a convenience thing for the properties and the businesses that are neighboring one another in emergency. So they would not get to use that as their primary driveway.
So then when parcel 1 develops and it builds its parking lot, at that point, would that be more appropriate then?
It could. It could. I'm looking at, the situation we're dealing with. We all recall the apartment project that we have going just to the east. The people from Cleveland, I think their name was Pearl, was the 3-story facility to the east of here. They're trying to connect to the office park next to them because there was never the cross-access easement put in. And if that access easement had been there, then that would be easier for them to do that today. We had the same situation occur between Leo's and the car wash here. It wasn't there. The property owner of the Leo's wanted to connect to the car wash, but the car wash owner at that time said, no way. So Leo's put the stub in up to the property line and put the chain across it for years. And then when the car wash sold, the new car wash guy said, why would we not want this connected? So then the chain came down and everything was connected. So I don't know if it's a requirement, it's encouraged, but certainly it isn't meant for them to use your road as their driveway.
Right.
So that's the background on them. So, any comments or thoughts?
I had a question regarding the MDOT approval. I know it says in your report that MDOT had reviewed it initially, but does it not require additional review since it's changing to a road versus a drive?
I did not get an answer to that question from MDOT, if it's going to require anything different.
Okay.
So I think that's a fair question, and I don't have a good answer for you.
Well, the traffic load's not changing yet, right? So until that traffic load changes by whatever happens on the other properties, then we may have an increase of traffic load. Then we may want to force a new look from MDOT, I would think. I mean, right, the traffic load's not changing.
No. And there's nothing that would have, this is hypothetical, now just work with me. There's nothing that would have prevented him from developing this piece back here. It doesn't have to be split. It could be under the same ownership. He could develop that, and there's nothing that would have developed or prevented him from developing these other pieces as well. It could be developed consistent with the zoning for those. I don't know that the land divisions will, by themselves, increase any traffic intensity. But your question about will MDOT require something, I don't have that answer.
I wasn't just thinking from a traffic perspective, but even like an approach and the connection to M59 or Highland Road from, or what the requirements are, if any. And
Like
maybe they are no different, but I would, consider including their sign off or some sort of response from them as part of approval from other agencies, just to make sure.
They have been known to come in at the last minute and change things, haven't they?
Yes.
Yeah, I
think
don't really-
that's part of my concern is making sure it's known up front as opposed to after the fact or before it's too late, so.
Yeah, so they don't incur additional expenses because for some
Right.
reason MDOT comes in
Right,
and says
yeah.
something. I don't think MDOT's going to say too much because they put in the approaches that are required for the visual, before you turn in and come out. So, and I think, while, yes, it is a road, it's really a driveway. I mean, we're bringing it up to the standards of a road because of the length and so forth, but at the end of the day, it is a driveway to access those parcels.
Yeah, and we do in our motion on item 7, we do say, "and all other governmental agencies," without calling MDOT out.
Okay.
But, I mean, if MDOT's going to want to look at it or ask what's going on, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't get it sounded like they weren't going to do anything, but he was going to get back to me, and I
I
never
don't
heard
see
back.
I'm not changing anything, because
Yeah.
we put the decel lane in and put the Excel lane in, and they had this as one large parcel, and Troy hit it right on the head. I could literally go build everything out, but we don't want to own each parcel under the same legal entity, and that's the main reason for this.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you
I
have
just-
any opinions on the access easement or not? Again, I don't think it's a requirement.
Right. I was just going to circle back to the one comment in there about your cul-de-sac. Could you put an island in the middle just to reduce the amount of pavement out there? So it's not, the whole thing isn't paved? That was-
Possibility.
Okay.
I've never done that. I've always just made mine.
All
asphalt.
paved? Yeah, and I know we're trying to kind of reduce pavement, so if it's possible, I think that would be something.
Yeah. I'll entertain it.
Okay.
Okay, I guess at the end, you'd have to add that.
Okay.
Okay, we're on page 6, F easements. We do have the legal description, we've got the emergency, all the comments are in there. They're all, was this our easement, our maintenance agreement?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked familiar.
Modification.
Minor, okay. And the only item under easements that we need to talk about is just the position of the road and the actual existing facility in regards to the setback off of that.
Yeah, and just so everybody's clear on that, one of the issues that came up is the existing building was okay and was approved in that location and complies with its current location, but when this becomes a dedicated private road, when you have a 66-foot wide easement, then you have a 50-foot setback that applies to it, and the building would only be 40.4 feet here and 41.5 feet there. So there is a portion of this building that will become non-conforming.
And what does that mean to the applicant?
We've got a bulldozer out back. We'll just,
Take the corner off?
what it means to the applicant is that portion of the building doesn't comply. In the event that it were to burn down or a tornado, they might not be able to rebuild on that exact footprint. They may have to modify the footprint somehow to comply.
Okay, any questions on that? I did, go ahead.
Is there a concern, I'm going to kind of focus at Joe down there. Is there a concern about us approving this private road and creating a non-conforming structure?
Well, a couple of things. One, it's our recommendation, and then it goes to the board, so the board will be the one approving it. I don't think so,
Okay.
because it's again, I think it's not, I look at it more as driveway than it is a road.
I do too, but
You know, that's
I
kinda
mean,
how I look at it.
legally,
Yeah.
we're calling it a road now.
Right.
And in that process, we're making his building, a portion of his building non-conforming.
I think there would be a variance at some point if something were to happen. I don't think,
Oh, I agree. I just wondered from a legal perspective, are we doing anything in error by creating it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so either. This is initiated by him. It's not anything initiated. If this were something that were initiated by the township, maybe you'd have a little more
Okay.
merit to that thought, but this is initiated by him.
The landowner.
And
Okay.
there's really no way to,
Very good.
And we're
Okay.
making them aware of it, so that's kind of better.
I mean, the only other option is to grant a variance on the 66-foot wide easement width, and I think you're just better off going this way.
Okay.
And we're going to wish him well, and nothing is ever going to happen that's
That's
going to
right.
become part of
Yeah.
a discussion.
Nothing more.
I had a
Nothing
client-
more.
I had a client tell me that 4 dams broke, so,
Oh.
or 2 dams out of 4.
Yeah.
I had kind of jumped ahead on the easement agreement and all that, that was there. As Joe had reiterated there, this is a recommendation going to the board for approval, and they can deal with any of those specifics that are in there that we haven't talked about, but I think we've touched on everything because we've gone through the actual review process for a private road. Looks like Township Engineer, Fire Authority, DPW, they're either approving with conditions or making notes in their letter. Are there any additional questions or comments we have for Troy or the applicant on this? No?
The only thing is that little island that you're talking about, the problem with what you're suggesting there is I think it's a huge maintenance issue.
I know.
It just doesn't,
Right.
I mean, and I don't know how big that area is. Like, I was trying to figure out, but, I mean, it would be a little bit different if it was something like a subdivision lot. You know, how you come into like a cobblestone or something where you have this little area that comes in that's 2 lanes or Mill Point, and you have a boulevard kind of situation. That's really, and it's not consistent with what we've required before in these types of situations. If you look at the service station over here, we don't require it,
Okay.
and it's an in and out. That's the only thing I would suggest that, I think it's great if he would consider it, but I'm not so sure I
Comfortable.
would, I'm not comfortable requiring it. The other thing it does is it creates a situation where if you're pulling out, and it's such a small area, but it creates a tree, creates a vision issue.
Yeah,
So
Right.
maybe that's another thing that I would probably suggest that.
right.
The only other thing to that too is 53-foot semis trying to make the turn versus a fire truck. They're a lot longer.
Yeah.
So that's exactly where I was going to go with that. I had that question on a semi-truck and how we see a lot of these islands just chewed up, right, from them navigating. Maybe cars are on the road, keeping them from engineering, making the turn that we might expect, but for a fire truck also. But, I mean, I like the idea of the
Yeah.
lack of concrete wherever
Right.
we can. And some other examples around in the township.
I mean, our boulevard on M59 looks awesome. I don't know if you have seen it. It looks great right now. Well, that was great, but
Yeah, no, it was just an idea of just less, pavement.
impervious.
Wasn't even caring about the landscape planting, it's just
Yeah.
trying to reduce pavement if there was a way.
Yeah.
And I get it, even if you think gravel, it spills out, it gets messy, it's just trying to reduce pavement.
Yeah.
It's 100 feet of pavement.
Our tree line street, just continue all the way around, just like we're going to
Yep.
see here shortly on hopefully
Yeah.
Bella Vita Drive.
Okay.
So maybe that won't be the direction, but if it is, would it go back to the fire marshal for them to take a look at it, just to confirm that it doesn't get us into a problem with the fire truck?
He already has, right? He's already
So-
looked at it, right?
Well,
So
that one without an island
That's
in it.
without an island. I'm just
I thought he
thinking,
had a comment in this report with the island.
No, there
No.
was no island proposed, so
Oh, okay.
No. Oh, it just says it's a turning radius at the end to be 50
Right.
feet.
Right.
Right, that's standard everywhere.
And that's just a cul-de-sac.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all right, I don't.
Well, if it
doesn't
meets
have to
our
be-
ordinance, they
Yeah.
should be happy.
Right,
it's worthy discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Well, actually, if you
Yes.
belt that out, you could just get rid of it because they would come in the parking lot and go through the parking lot and come out. and that's how it would be. You wouldn't even have a turnaround. You wouldn't even have that cul-de-sac. But we don't have we need something. So that's what we're going to get. Because that's going to be interesting when you put the driveway in, because it's going to be a big cul-de-sac with a field of pavement. But there isn't going to be that much traffic. Because there will be it'll be hard to stripe it. I mean, what are the lanes? But
I'll have my engineer look at it and just see what
Sure.
size would work.
Thank you.
We'll entertain it.
Yeah, thank you.
okay, any other questions? If you are so inclined, there is a motion on page 1 of this staff report.
Move to recommend approval of site plan application number 20-004, which is a request to construct a private road, which is intended to provide access to 4 parcels, which will be created under a separate land division application. The recommendation for approval is based on the following. Number 1, the length of the proposed private road is acceptable as proposed, despite being in excess of 600 feet in length, and despite having only one point of public access, and despite the lack of access easements for a future private road connection to any adjacent developable parcels. Number 2, the proposed private road meets the minimum standards as outlined in the zoning ordinance. 3, due to the unique shape of the subject property, the proposed private road is consistent with the township standards for developing the property. This approval is subject to the following condition. The proposed private road is subject to approval by the township board. 2, the applicant shall adequately address the outstanding items noted in the planning department's memorandum dated June 4th, 2020. Revised plans, if necessary, shall be subject to an administrative review by the planning staff prior to the issuance of a land use permit. 3, the proposed private road easement maintenance agreement shall comply with the requirements of the township attorney. 4, approval of the private road does not include approval of any future land divisions. 5, a land use permit for the proposed private road is required. 6, the private road shall be constructed in accordance with the Heartland Township standards and specifications prior to the issuance of any land use permit by Heartland Township for Parcel 1, Parcel 2, 3, and 4. 7, applicant complies with any requirements of the Department of Public Works Director, Township Engineering Consultant, Heartland Deerfield Fire Authority, and all other government agencies as applicable.
I can second that.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval of site plan application 20-004 from Commissioner Mitchell, second from Commissioner Voigt. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Congratulations, thank you. Place looks very nice there.
It does.
Yeah, going to be open soon, or?
We open in 30 days.
Awesome.
I'll let you know
Awesome.
for the opening.
All right, good deal. Looks very nice. Thank you.
All right.
Since we have no public, we will move on to our planner's report. Troy?
Yeah, I just have about 42 things.
Of course.
I have 2 things. The first, I want to let the Planning Commission know that the Township Board took the initiative to adopt an ordinance that will allow restaurant users and to utilize their outdoor space. At the time of this, they were not allowed to have indoor seating. And the thought was at some point when they're allowed to have seating indoors, that they'll be limited. We didn't know at that time what that limitation was going to be. Since then, they are allowed to have seating. It's limited to 50% capacity. The goal was to relax current regulations so that they could utilize outdoor space in any way that they deemed necessary to assist them in their reopening of their seating, of their businesses, and streamline the process. And the Township Board did pass that ordinance. I did want to share that with you. So you may see some restaurants they've got some seating in the parking lot, actually taking up parking spaces, or in areas that might not otherwise be permitted. These are temporary provisions. The ordinance did not allow them to make any permanent changes, but they are permitted to do this temporarily while these executive orders are in place. Any restaurant that desires to do permanent changes would have to go through the normal process, which would involve coming here with a site plan.
But that's also retail stores too, correct?
Yes.
Not just
yeah.
restaurants.
We've had no discussion with any retail stores, so it's all basically geared towards restaurants. But yes, it would allow even retail operations to utilize their outdoor space. They apply for a special event permit. They show a site plan showing what they're doing, and it's approved administratively, and no fee. There's no charge for that.
If they are serving liquor, do they have to have some type of enclosure? How's that all play out?
It's a good question. So the township just relaxed its standards.
Okay.
They still are subject to the Liquor Control Commission
Yeah.
and any regulations that the Liquor Control Commission would put on that, and I believe they would require some kind of a barrier. It may not be as formal or elaborate. I think they're allowing, and I've seen some pictures of some communities that had like barrels with a rope. So it's my understanding that they'll allow even a temporary measure for that.
Yeah, both Mackles and Heartland Brewing are utilizing extra space, and it's very temporary in nature, but they do have it roped off. But in you could take it down in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's that kind of a thing.
So for those, this is probably one of the few, if not the only ordinance that we're aware of in the state that has tried to do something that helps businesses in our community, but also help them comply with, the social distancing that's been required. And, it's difficult for a lot of our businesses that we're trying, in light of all the different things. So this was something the board considered in a couple meetings. It was taken up, we discussed it, and then last meeting on the first part of June, we approved it. So anyway, I think it's really important to our business community.
I think it's great.
Try and find ways to do something for them. So this has hurt a lot of people. This whole situation has hurt a lot of people and businesses, and we're all struggling to try and deal with it. So.
It's kind of interesting, a comment I heard that Brighton is closing down the city, or the main street, Friday and Saturday, or coming
Yeah,
up for a couple
Friday and
days,
Saturday.
yeah, for the same,
for the weekend, Friday
Yeah.
night and through
same
Saturday
reason.
night.
Yeah.
Northville's doing the same.
Actually,
They
Fenton's now
might be
doing
doing
it.
it all summer, their whole main street, starting Friday.
Yeah, that's
creative.
Brighton. It's doing that.
Yeah, so everybody's trying to do it.
Fenton's done that back and forth a few times.
Yeah.
And so like at Milford Memories, when they have that event in the summer, when they set up their little restaurants out front, they do the same thing. They have just barrels and ropes or tables to kind of seal off where the area to serve liquor would be.
Yeah, it's pretty packed, though. I've been there
No
a number of
social
times.
distancing at Milford Memories.
Yeah, social distancing does not take place at Milford Memories.
I think I saw you go over the rope one day, Joe.
I actually got one
Alright.
of those barrels. It's on my desk, on my deck. So it's a table.
I was like, you serious?
Yeah, I am serious.
Oh, dear. Okay, that's all good. Thank you.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is normally the Planning Commission would be involved with something like that, but the urgency of getting that done so that those businesses could take advantage of it when they were allowed to open, we just didn't have time, so I just wanted to at least bring that to your attention. The second item is Copert Biological. If you can recall, a while ago, they came in for site plan to do an addition. Their business is booming. They even talked about future additions. And as part of that, we got into the construction plans, and they had a change. They wanted to add a truck, like a semi-truck bay to the side of the building. It was an area that was already paved We weren't increasing any pavement or anything like that, but that was an addition. I reached out to the site plan review committee and asked, it's kind of a gray area if this is something that staff can handle as an administrative change. We decided to go ahead with that. I had asked the admin committee of the board how they felt about it. Our goal was to not delay that project, and I did want to bring that to your attention. I feel it's at least worthwhile noting that there was a change that was slightly different than what the Planning Commission approved. We generally can remain very consistent with those plans that the Planning Commission approved. This was a slight deviation where there was a side of the building they wanted to add a truck backup door, and that would be a change to the building elevation that was not shown or presented here. So that's all I've got.
Okay. Committee reports, comments, anybody? No, nope.
You
go
heard
ahead.
anything else on Meals on Wheels?
I have not.
Okay.
What's the question on that?
So Meals on Wheels is looking to build a brand-new facility in Heartland Township,
Oh, okay.
somewhat south of the Hero Center, a vacant piece of land.
Oh, okay.
I had asked that they, when they're ready to have a little concept plan, we would sit down and meet with them, and the site plan review committee would share comments, and I just haven't heard anything.
They're working on it at the county level, because I saw, I don't know if it was
It'd be
commissioner board meeting minutes. No, I don't usually read those, but there was something that made me go to the county website, and there was a discussion there. They're getting some kind of grant or something on that.
Yeah, I believe
So that was all part of putting the pieces together, and they're confident. I don't recall the exact details, but there's a little time for them to now have to process all this with whoever they're getting the money from.
But they're already celebrating, that's why I asked.
Oh,
Maybe they're
It's
further
a
along.
wonderful organization.
Huh?
It's a wonderful
Yeah,
organization.
so,
my wife and I package breakfast up there
Oh, do you? Okay.
one day a week. Not during COVID.
no. Anything else? We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support?
Kalani and Grissom, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thanks.
Meals on Wheels. Because,
Yeah, so the only thing that's, she's saying is the tile floor, we were able to.
Well, that took longer than.
Some